Manahola Rent A Car. What's up everybody, it's your boy Surfer Dude Thomas and my companion Stitch. I just got back from a 2-week trip to Maui, and the entire time I was renting a car from Manahola Rent A Car. It was a 2008 Nissan Rogue, and a lot happened, so I feel very ready to make this video and talk about my experience with them. But before I do, I just want to share a very helpful tip. If you're trying to save money renting a car, whether you're traveling to Maui or anywhere else around the world, check to see if your credit card will cover the automotive insurance while you're traveling. Mine did, and that was a huge lifesaver. Saved hundreds of dollars while I was going there. So if you're trying to save money, see if your credit card will cover the automotive insurance. But now let's get into Manahola. If you're watching this video, hopefully you do know what Manahola Rent A Car is, but just in case you don't, let me explain. They are a Maui-based car rental service where you just rent a slightly older car. It's not going to be a brand new Camaro, Mustang, Slingshot, or anything along those lines. This is going to be something that's a little more beat down. It's still going to get you from A to B and a lot cheaper than the rest of the competition. A few months before I went, I had a couple buddies, one of which is a mechanic who went and rented from Manahola. So I picked their brain and they said it was a fantastic service, and as long as you know what you're doing with a car and you know the basic maintenance and how to fill up your tires and stuff, you should be okay. So I went ahead and booked in with this company, and this is my experience. Obviously step one is going onto their website, and I remember the first time that I did, I was looking around and I saw, okay, cheapest Maui car rentals. That's promising, but there must be a catch. What is this catch? And basically, it's not really a catch, they just give you older cars. While every other rental service is giving you something that's brand new, 2018, 2019, this company is giving you something that's kind of 2000 to 2010. And I kept scrolling and I went on to Our Fleet, and I was scrolling down and I noticed, okay, so we have a Ford Explorer Sport Track here, you know, 01 to 05-ish. That's the first vehicle I ever had, so I know this vehicle very well. And it says truck, small, 4-door. Okay, that makes sense. And I kept scrolling down, and then I saw the next generation Sport Track, and I noticed here that it says big truck, newer, 2007 Ford F-150. So I kind of took a look at that and thought maybe these guys don't know really too much about what they're talking about if they've listed a mid-sized truck as a full-size truck, and also they've named it incorrectly. So I ended up booking in the newer SUV, and I just had a few questions and I wanted to know what I was going to be driving. So I gave them 2 separate calls. The first call was a few weeks before I was leaving, and they answered all my questions. There was a very helpful lady on the phone. She just didn't know what I was driving yet. The second time I called in, I just wanted to make sure I knew what I was driving, and there was a very unhelpful guy on the other end of the phone. So I guess there's a good experience on the phone and a bad experience on the phone, a little bit hit and miss there. This guy basically told me, oh, I think it's gonna be a Nissan Rogue, and I said, okay, what year is it gonna be so I can figure out what it's gonna look like, you know, the color, what generation is it gonna be, and he said, oh, it's gonna be probably 2009, 2010, so I kind of had an idea of what I was looking for, and the generation wouldn't have changed, but I remember looking on the inspection sheet, and that was actually a 2008. So at this point, I was thinking, these guys have no idea what they're talking about, they don't know cars very well. I didn't ask for a refund though, I just kept going and went along with it, and eventually I got to Maui. Fingers crossed that nothing was going to be wrong with the car, but I knew that if something was to go wrong, hopefully I could fix it, and even if something minor happened, it was still worth saving hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So I got there and it was super easy to find. They said that it would be under the letter H in the parking lot, and they had literally parked it in the exact stall under the letter H at the Maui airport. In order to get the key, you have to use a 4-digit code that they would have sent you in an email a couple days before you left. After you put that 4-digit code into a box that is in the back of the car, you can retrieve the keys and you're ready to rock and roll. And obviously, as you should, I did a walk around the car and I noticed that it was covered in scratches and dings and dents, and that is a good thing or a bad thing depending on how you look at it. It's a bad thing if when you give that car back and you don't have proof that you didn't do that ding, that means that they can come after you for that and say, oh, well, you know, we didn't have record of it before you picked up the car, and there's no proof that you have saying that you didn't do this, so they're gonna come after you asking for a few $100s to repair that. But I was lucky in that case. There was so many dings on the car. I think that even if I added a ding by accident, that they wouldn't have noticed. They just really didn't care there, which is the good thing. I also noticed that there was zero tread left on the tires, and when I got inside and turned on the engine, there was only half a tank of gas. There was no manual in the glove box. There was a warning light that had activated on the dash that stayed on for the entire trip. It was missing a tire pressure cap. Also, the wiper blades and fluid dispenser were not working very well at all. The left sprayer would shoot the fluid over the windscreen, and the right one would just spray to the very bottom, while the springs on the actual wipers were very old and very worn down, so when you move them back and forth, they don't actually clean the windows. And this isn't actually necessarily an issue, but I also noticed that you could only play your music either through the radio, which was very staticky even if you were in the middle of a city, or through an aux cable. It was very lucky that I remembered to bring my long aux cable, and I also needed to bring the converter because I have an iPhone 10 and obviously there's no aux port on that. So if you're renting from Manahola, remember to bring the converter if you use an iPhone, as well as an aux cable just in case. Once I did get the music going though, I noticed that the rear view mirror was shaking uncontrollably, and that's because the people that used it last had cranked the bass and the treble all the way up to max. Now that's not necessarily, again, an issue. There's nothing wrong with that. That's gonna happen in almost any car when you crank the bass and treble all the way up. But it just kinda goes to show the types of people that drive these cars. And that was all before I had even set off. I did also notice, though, on a good note, that the air conditioning worked very well, which if you're going to Maui is incredibly important, as it is unbelievably humid and unbelievably hot out there. But eventually I got going. I made it down to the Costco, which is a couple minutes down the road, to pick up some food, and by the time I came back I had already noticed a couple more problems. One of those was trying to lock the car was near impossible with the key fob that they had given me. The remote, you had to press very hard to lock it, and you also had to aim it properly at the car or it wasn't gonna lock. Rarely did I ever get it on the first couple tries. It usually took me about half a dozen attempts to actually lock the vehicle. And the other thing that I noticed was probably the biggest annoyance while I was driving this car around. Every 3 or 4 times you would start up the car, it would take an eternity to actually start. It would kind of just sit there thinking about it for a few seconds and then eventually start. Now, I should say I never ran into any actual problems with this. Not once did it not start. It just took a long time, and the first time this happened was in the Costco parking lot, and I thought that I was going to be stuck there in the blistering heat with all this food that I had to get into the fridge. The drive to where I was staying was about an hour away, and on that drive I noticed quite a few things. When I came to a stop sign or a red light, if I stayed in drive, which most people normally do at a stop sign or a red light, and you're just holding your foot on the brake, every now and then, this maybe happened 4 or 5 times on the entire trip, the entire car would vibrate unbelievably aggressively just for a couple seconds. And I also noticed that the fuel gauge was a little wacky on that Nissan Rogue, because by the time I got to the resort that I was staying at, I had more fuel left in the tank, apparently, than when I had left the airport, which was an hour or so away. But that's not it. There is still one last thing that I ran into that I thought was quite unacceptable while I was on this trip. I was going to be doing the road to Hana, which is a full day trip where you're driving for most of it down some very sketchy roads, and when I was fueling up just before I went, I thought, you know what, let's just check the tire pressure, because why not? It's right there in front of me. I may as well before I go, and knowing the things I've ran into with this car so far, you know, they might be a little flat. Lo and behold, they were all around 30 psi. Now, I've pointed out all of the negatives and all the things that I thought were kind of unacceptable and the things that I ran into that I consider issues while on that trip, and I don't want to make out Manahola to be a bad guy, like a bad company that's going to try and screw you over, because they're really not. They're giving you an awesome deal because of how much money you're saving. There was a couple positives. Obviously, the air conditioning working was a huge bonus. You know, if that didn't work, that really would be uncool, and I would be going and replacing replacing that car with a different one, but also that car had paddle shifters, which if you're doing Haleakala is super important on the way down, as you're gonna have to be shifting down to second or even first gear while you're going down Haleakala, especially at nighttime. You wanna be going nice and slow on those roads. So they aren't all that bad. Obviously with an older car, you're gonna run into issues. I do think that they should have been maintaining these cars a little better. All in all, I think they were okay, and as long as you have a basic knowledge of how to work on a car and how to do very simple things like filling up the tires and changing over a spare if you need to, you'll be absolutely fine renting from this company. Keep in mind that this was my opinion and my experience. You probably won't be getting the same car if you rent from this company, and you may have a completely different experience. My other buddy had a very different experience and ran into very little issues. He had a couple lights turn on while he was there, but again, nothing that actually got in the way of him enjoying his trip. I think it is beyond worth it to go to this company because you're saving so much money. And if you're thinking of renting a Mustang and spending an extra $1,000 or so while you're over there, just don't, because while I was there, I recorded about 20 to 30 Mustangs in just a 10 to 15 minute trip, which is unbelievable. So everybody is driving Mustangs over there, and it just isn't that cool when the person in front of you and behind you is also driving a Mustang. So it's worth it to just get something that's gonna get you from A to B safely, which I think these cars can do. So I would in the end recommend this company as long as you have basic understanding and knowledge of how to work and maintain a car like this. Just remember that you get what you pay for in this situation. Anyway, my name is Thomas. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you like what I do here on this channel, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace. Bye.